Somebody asked me recently, how do you turn an away from motivation into a towards motivation? Oh, interesting question. Now, if you're not familiar with these terms, let me just do a quick definition. So, away from motivation means that you're motivated to do something because you're aware that there will be some unpleasant consequences if you don't. So I need to get this piece of work done because my boss will be annoyed with me if I don't, would be an example of an away from. Or it could be, I need to get this done because if I'm not finished today, then I'll probably fret about it overnight and I won't enjoy my evening at home. Things like that. So it's like I know that something bad will happen if I don't do this, so therefore I'm motivated to get on and do it. The opposite then is the towards motivation, which is where I'm motivated to do something because I can see there'll be some benefit of doing it. Yeah? So I want to get this done because my boss will be pleased, or I want to get this done so I can go home and relax this evening, or I want to get this done because I'll feel good about myself when I've completed it. Yeah? So that's all about focusing on the benefit of having done something. And neither of these ways of motivating yourself are necessarily better than the other. Ultimately, they both get the job done. They're both motivating you to undertake the task. But sometimes people want to get away from doing too much away from motivation because it can be a bit stressful. If you're always focusing on what can go wrong and what the negative consequences might be, then that can lead to you being a bit stressed. Whereas if you're focusing on the positive benefits of doing something, that's clearly a nicer frame of mind to be in. So I do quite often get asked, how do I do this? How do I stop thinking about the negative and focus on the positive in order to get myself to do something? And the other place where it comes up sometimes is when somebody's thinking about their goals. Sometimes people say to me, well, I know what I don't want. I'm not so clear about what I do want. It's a common thing, and that can show up in things like, where do you want to go for the weekend, right through to what do you want in the way of a career, or what are you looking for in your next role, or, because sometimes something really stands out as being, I've had an experience of this and I definitely don't want it again. And that can sort of get in the way of even thinking about, well, what do I want instead? And that, of course, is the question to ask yourself. Well, what do I want instead? If I know what I don't want, what do I want instead? That can be quite an interesting thing to think about. And that will start to sort of turn around the way that you're thinking about the whole situation when you say, well, I know what I don't want, but what do I want instead? There's also something else to ask yourself, which is, if you know what you don't want, would anything that is not that thing you don't want, would that be okay? So if you've kind of said, well, what do we want to do at the weekend? Well, I really don't want to go to the seaside. Okay. So would anything that is not going to the seaside be okay with you? Right. And then you might find there are some more things that you don't want, or you might think, actually, what I really want to do is, it's just giving yourself the opportunity to get past that thing that's clouding your judgment and think more creatively about, well, what are the options? What are the possibilities? Now, some people have a habit of always focusing on what they don't want. And so if you want to change that habit and get more into the idea of focusing on what you do want, there's a couple of things that you can do that make it easy. And if you know NLP and you know the well-formed outcomes pattern, then that's the thing to use. And 5 or 10 times a day, work out what's your well-formed outcome for a situation. Keep doing that. There will come a point when you ask yourself, what's my outcome? And whatever comes to mind will already be well-formed. It's worth spending a couple of weeks to do that. If you don't know the well-formed outcomes pattern, you can always look it up. But the simple thing to do is just to keep asking yourself, what do I want in this situation? What's my outcome? What does good look like here? And the more you ask yourself that question, the more you're training yourself at the kind of unconscious level to focus on the positive end results rather than thinking about, what am I avoiding by doing this? Or what do I want to prevent from happening? Or what's the worst thing that can happen that I want to make sure doesn't? So you always have a choice, but nonetheless we all have habits. And I think the key here to shifting the way that you motivate yourself is just to become aware of it and exert that choice that's always available to you.